welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, here on our Twitch page, is my producer and co-founder, Brian Goins. Brian, what's up, man?
You guys know that there is going to be a brand new cereal box coming to a local Winn-Dixie store called Heroes.
Can it switch or play defense? We will get into that later. On the left of the screen, we have the producer of Hangover Time, our hit new postgame show that you can find on this Twitch channel after every single Heat game. Our anime lover and photoshopper, Brass Jazz.
What's up, everybody?
Brass, it has been a minute since you've been on the pod.
It has. I mean, Alf's got me working overtime, hangover time.
Listen, Alf is Jeff Bezos of podcasting. He's overworking you. He's mistreating your labor. And I just want to let you know that me and the listeners appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is this your way of letting us know that Alf is resigning? Because Bezos stepped down today.
Oh, man, if Alf resigned, that would save us so much money. On the bottom left, you hear his voice, the great Jeremy Tache. Jeremy's doing a lot of things, including Swings and Missions, which is the #1 Marlins podcast in the market, in the world. Do you have the best Marlins podcast in the world? I think you do.
I think it's like the only Marlins podcast at this point.
Well, that's why.
No,
there's a whole bunch.
But seriously, like I saw Barry say the other day, because I saw Craig Mish got a job at the Miami Herald. There's like only 2 outlets covering the Marlins.
Wait, he did? Oh, congrats, Mish.
Yeah, Craig's doing some work with the Herald now, which is super exciting, and he's doing a podcast with them as well. So he's on the 2. But there's the guys at Fish Stripes do a really good job with all their different podcasts. And then actually our guy Peter over in the UK has a great Marlins podcast, which is crazy.
Is that the same guy that's doing the Miami Heat UK show?
No, so it's 2 different guys. Yeah, it's 2 different guys, but they're friendly because of Twitter as well. And
that's awesome. That's wild.
Yeah, it's great, and his is a blast. Like, I really enjoy listening to it. So
wait, do you know the story of why there's people in the UK that like Miami sports?
I have not actually gotten that explanation in full.
Is it Luol Deng?
It must be Luol Deng. That's the answer. Next
Listen,
time somebody asks me, I'm just gonna respond that way and see.
Just like say it confidently.
Just gonna say it with a straight face. Just Luol Deng. No,
Cheers,
of
mate.
course, obviously, yeah.
By the way, we got to congratulate Jeremy for his gig with Fox Sports Florida, which is just a round of applause. No one deserves it as much as you do. The television presence that you have, that you command, they couldn't have given it to a better guy that has worked really hard to get there. So congrats from our show, friend of the show, Jeremy. We are happy to see you.
It's actually going to be Bally Sports Florida pretty soon.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah, it is.
Like the gym, like Bally's the gym.
No, like the casino.
So it's Bally's the casino, but that's the answer I've heard a lot as well. No, it's Bally's the casino. And
does Bally's
it's
the
going to
gym
be
still
Bally.
Exist?
I don't think it does.
That was my first gym. The one, Brian. It was the one on Miller, and I think like 117th or something. I don't remember. Do you know the one?
I know is Porky's. I think that's still around.
This is Kendall lore. It was in front of the GameStop and the there's a Fresco y Mas there now. I think formerly Publix.
How's Bally stock doing?
I don't know. Maybe that's next. Rest in peace to GameStop stock. All right, well, we are here to talk Miami Heat, and whether we're gonna sound the panic button or not, I don't really know, but we're gonna talk it through. So I want to start, and we're gonna get to the news of the day with Meyers Leonard and Tyler's cereal. Brian's gonna fill us in on whatever the hell Tyler's doing with Cheerios or whatever the hell he's doing, but Fruit Hoops, excuse me. I want to get into the game yesterday. And Brass, I know that you guys did a great job covering it last night on Hangover Time, and I know that you all aired out your frustrations. The thing I want to talk about, and maybe not so much the machinations of the game, because I think we kind of understand how that's gone, and it's kind of just the same stuff that's afflicted this team for the last 2 seasons. But I'd just rather have a bigger conversation about Tyler Herro, because whenever, now that they're healthy and they start losing, he's the guy right now that's catching the strays. He's the guy, whoa, why didn't we trade for Harden? We could, why do we have to keep him? He's getting switched on to Gordon Hayward, and he's getting absolutely smoked. And I kind of feel like the conversation around him has no nuance. Like, he's a good player. He's a good pull-up mid-range shooter. He's a good pick-and-roll scorer. His three-point shooting hasn't been there, but I feel like you kind of expect that to get there. The defense is but I don't know. Like, you've seen the fan reaction. I think it's kind of unfair.
Yeah, yes and no, but I think you have to mix that with some of the reaction from other players that have really dropped off precipitously, and we look and we go like, well, why didn't we move them sooner when their stock was higher? So I'm sorry, there's a lot of stock talk lately, but
the stonks.
But really, Kendrick Nunn, I mean, he finished second in Rookie of the Year, and look at him now. He doesn't. I mean, he had a couple good games there, but it really wasn't that great. And I feel like there's a little bit of this with Tyler. I mean, there's been a lot of missed time as well. So it's hard to really get a good read on that. But I don't think it's unfair to look at that and go, he's an attractive piece to other teams, and his contract is quite a good one for his potential ceiling. So I still think that he is a totally reasonable piece to be moved. I mean, I'm not slandering him too much, but his 3-point shooting it definitely has dipped. He's active though. I'll give him that. He's not out there standing around, but he's also not a good defender at all.
That's kind of how I feel about Strus. It's like, I'm not sure Strus is doing a lot. Like, Jeremy, you saw people on Twitter like, look at Strus's defense, and I was like, I feel like Strus is doing a lot. I don't know if it's all good. I know that he's a get in the play guy, but yeah. I'm not really there with him yet defensively.
Well, I think when you're seeing that last night, it's because he came up with, I think, 2 or 3 loose balls that ultimately just sort of bounced his way. But it's because he's so active on the defensive end. Whether he's a great defender or not, I mean, we don't obviously know any of that yet. And, I mean, maybe he turns into one. It is the Miami Heat. But more than anything, it's cool seeing a guy with that much effort on the defensive end, especially when, like, again, he was someone that 5 or 6 games ago, people were literally calling him out by name as the reason if he's playing, that's why the team's losing. And then last night, he's keeping the entire, team floating
offensive
in the first
float.
half. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
So
that was
Tiff's
fun
in the
watch.
chat saying that don't we dare slander Strus, because Tiff has been on.
Absolutely not.
Tiff has been on the Strus. Yes, Tiff has been on the Strus. And it's kind of weird because yesterday, like, Tyler played so badly, right? And it's not just the shooting wasn't there. It was like there was a specific play, not just the one dribble when he's wide open, and it's like, come on, man, like, you're a good shooter, like, come on, put that up. It was, when the closeouts came, like, right, so like Jimmy kind of penetrates and then the help comes and they help off of him, and Tyler gets the kick out, and he's not comfortable shooting the ball because he's not shooting it well. Fine, whatever. He starts taking it to the rim, right, attacking the guy in the closeout. And when that other helper comes off Bam, who's in the dunker spot, now Tyler's baseline, he's pressed up against the baseline. He doesn't really look at the rim for a floater or a pull-up, so he basically dribbles the ball back out. So, like, any kind of progress that they made breaking down the defense is gone. And he's not that kind of passer. Like, you saw Andre make a couple really, really nice passes to Bam in the pocket, get him active. Tyler's not doing that. And because I reference this because I saw Jack Alfonso tweet. He's like, if your guy's not shooting well, he's not a good defender, he's not a good passer, what is he really doing for you out there? And it's kind of reductive, and part of it's a joke by Jack, but, like, there's a little bit of truth to that. Like, Brass, like, he has to be better, and I think that we are valid in criticizing him, but I think it goes too far, and I don't think we're always doing it for the right reasons.
I think people are a little rough on him because we as Heat fans love talking about what acquisitions are out there, and who we going to get and who we going to trade, and he's going to be a piece. He's going to be one that goes if we make a trade. Tyler is going to be a piece that goes. So
if it's a big trade. What's
that?
If it's a big trade.
Agreed. But what other trade? I mean, we only talk about
there's like
big
smaller,
trades.
more adjacent. If it's something for like Thaddeus Young or. Like if they go for right, Brian, like if they're gonna trade for PJ Tucker, Brian, like they're not gonna have to give Tyler. If they're gonna go for one of those other like fringe rotation power forwards,
if they do, Riley's washed.
If they give Tyler for he won't give Tyler.
Well, I'm saying, like, we've been talking about the big whales out there, and I think coming off of James Harden, and there are a lot of people who didn't want to let Tyler. I think it stupidly became, it's like, well, it's as simple as like, do you want Harden or do you want Tyler? And like, It was never about that. It was about so much more than that.
That was kind of about that with some people.
I know that's how people discuss it, but I mean the reality was you'd have to give up so much more than that to get someone like James Harden. I thought maybe that would be okay. And some people disagreed. So yeah, it's been pretty contentious, and I'm willing to give Tyler a little pass from last night because, you know, people having a close call with COVID like that, they might be a little shook for a couple days. So we'll see. But tomorrow night, no excuse. Come on, Tyler, you got to show up.
It's not people, it's his girlfriend, and that's a report.
She had a false positive, so I think it was Barry.
It was a close contact situation. But
it's scary
to see it all
one way or
worked out.
another.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I just on the Tyler thing, I think the way that we talk about him is so interesting, right? Because nobody breaks him down singularly as the player that he is contributing to the team. They break him down as the player that he could be and what could be contributing to the team. And that's and we've seen a number of players go through their entire Heat careers being that guy. And that never leads to anyone being satisfied with who they are as the player and the way they contribute until years later when they're gone, right? And then ultimately you're like, oh man, that guy was a great piece. You know, we really missed him. For that matter, there was a little bit of that. If you remember at the beginning of last season when things weren't working immediately they started 8-3 and then they went through a little bit of a stretch and Josh Richardson was playing his best basketball. And there were people on Twitter saying, oh, why'd you trade Josh to get Jimmy? What are we doing? Jimmy doesn't score. They're the same player and Jimmy's older. Come on. You know, so when you're looking at Herro and you're looking at the guy that he is for you on the floor, let's not forget, he's the one guy that missed a bunch of time because he was actually like hurt, right? It wasn't because of contact tracing. It wasn't because of actually dealing with COVID, which is obviously an injury and that's affecting your immune system. So Jimmy's coming back off that and performing great, but he's a veteran. He's 10 years older than Tyler. Tyler got hurt for what's really the first time in his career being like hurt in that type of way, having to miss time, trying to come back, not being able to come back for multiple games in a row, warming up. And then you come back off that injury, mind you, right after most of Twitter saying, oh, look, that guy made the leap after the games against Philly. He made the leap. He's a contributor. He's one of the 3 best players on the team. He's above Goran at this point. It's Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler. We're good forever. And then he gets hurt. He comes back and he isn't perfect. And now everybody's frustrated that he wasn't traded. So I just think we are kind of swinging back and forth. And this was the very first game that all of those guys were healthy and trying to figure out how to share the ball and what works since the Magic game day 1, you know, it's like, it's been that long. So I think and again, this is more of a general don't press the panic button, but especially on Tyler. Tyler's 20 years old. He's in his second year. He had basically no off season. And he had a great stretch of games. Those guys like that are going to be inconsistent. The confidence is obviously not there right now. He'll have one great game. Confidence will be back. He'll have 5 great games in a row offensively. There are issues with his game, but he'll grow through those. And that's the whole conversation around Harden or Beal or whoever it might be to begin with.
So a couple things on that. One, to your point about the injuries. Last year he got hurt he was in the boot and he missed All-Star Weekend. And when he came back, the season almost immediately got suspended.
Yep.
So he got hurt, didn't play forever, got back, and then the season got shut down. And it was like, okay, I think he played like 2 games, right? Like he really never got to get his footing back. Then the bubble happens. He has a great bubble, as you said. Almost no off season, no summer league for him.
Yep.
No full training camp. And I made this point with KZ as well. Like KZ didn't get a full summer league and Kendrick Nunn also. Like that's not fair to those guys because those are very important developmental like moments for you as a player, right? And it's also like, you know, you're the number 1 option on the summer league team, and that would have been a really, really great experience for him, kind of really intimate one-on-one coaching and help your game. So that's one thing with that I kind of feel for. The other thing is his salary is like dirt cheap. He's in contract for until he has a team option in 2022-2023 season for $5 million. So like, not only is he cheap for the production that you're getting, and Brian, we've talked about this before, how last season they really got a lot of production above their payroll, and Duncan's not going to be that next season. But Tyler, you're going to have this guy for $6 million contributing, you know, double-digit points, really good shooting, really good playmaking, and I know that, you're the cap guy. That is so incredibly valuable, not just to the Heat, but if you're trying to move them.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, anytime you have a rookie scale contract, that's why Bam, even for this stretch, has been amazing to have him play above his contract. It's having a rookie salary on your team and him outperforming his contract. It's helpful when you want to try to build around a team with like Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic's salary. Obviously, you would like to have a second whale kind of next to Jimmy right now. I think it would have been perfect had they, gotten like. I think they could have really made a move for James Harden. It probably would have fit really nicely with their salary right now, especially with Bam's extension next season. I mean, obviously you're paying a luxury tax next season, but it'd be worth it for a squad like that. And I think that's something that Riley's going to have to see if he can, press to the market, because right now the team doesn't have a max salary slot to add a third piece to his current roster. That's going to be, like one of those superstars that you think they could go after. I think Duncan definitely should remain on the team just because his cap hold's so low. He's going to meet the starting criteria next year. It's going to go up from like, I think a 2 point something starting cap hold to like almost 5. But for a player like him, you want to keep him because you could still go over to cap, re-sign him, and you keep the asset, and you might move him for a future deal. Doesn't mean you have to keep him for 4 seasons if you re-sign him.
Which I think is important because they can re-sign him with the bird, and they're going to be able to sign. They have like about 17 million.
It'd be a lot easier to trade match salaries too. That's another issue. Like if the team's capped out, it's very hard to add an outside free agent once you reach the cap. The only way you can go over the cap is by re-signing your own bird rights players.
Yeah, and I think that when we have the conversation about paying Duncan, not paying Duncan, I mean that's even if he's at 17, 18 million dollars, that's a movable salary. So a contender will need that.
Absolutely.
Somebody will need that. Plus, he's a plus player.
Yeah, and plus you already have him committed for however many years he's going to be under contract for. It's, that's more useful than him being a restricted free agent this summer if we're going to trade him now.
A team gets desperate, they want to keep their star, they have to make a trade, and that might be available, and that's kind of what we had this conversation with Chris Bosch as well. By the way, shout out to Curtis's Herro for gifting a tier 1 sub. We appreciate all the support. And while we have that brought up, I do want to mention, we talked about this on the pre-show, and we also mentioned it on Hangover Time. Our new Patreon. You can sign up here at patreon.com/Miami Heatbeat, not MIA Heatbeat. That is a typo. I forgot to fix that. But it's at Miami Heatbeat, patreon.com/Miami Heatbeat. And these are different tiers. I don't want to spend too much time on them because we've already talked about them, but I really do want to focus the support that you guys give us allow us to do this as much and as close to full time as we can. And we really worked hard to kind of find the best rewards for you guys to make sure that it's worth it. We don't want to offer something to you guys that's not worth it. So I know a lot of people have already signed up for our $10 tier, which means you can watch basketball games with us. We'll get on a Discord call or a Zoom call, whatever's more convenient for you guys, and we'll watch some Heat basketball together. Be on the call with some of your favorite Heat personalities. We'll do that. $5 rotation player tier is also really popular. You're going to get access to a newsletter. Alf is going to write again. We have Alf the Great committing to write for our newsletter, and Christian and I, and we're going to kind of get some stats for you guys, kind of everything that you need to know in the beginning of the week for the Miami Heat, get you as informed as anything. You're also going to get discount on our merch, which is launching soon. Brian is working really hard on that. And of course the Heat Beat Lifer tier, which is expensive, but as you saw, Twisted Tapioca debuted yesterday, kind of to show off how this tier works. You pay $50 and you get to come on a Hangover Time or a Miami Heat Beat pregame show. We get a little segment with us, and listen, we hang out at back. Tapioca was kind of hanging out after the show. We talked, we shot the shit. It was a lot of fun.
You're paying for a backstage pass is what you're paying for.
Essentially, yeah, and you pay our rent. That's important these tough times. So if you can, and we even have, for any support here on Twitch or on that. And if you're on Twitch and if you're a tier 1 sub, we're going to find a way to honor your tier 1 sub with the newsletter and with some of the Patreon stuff. Cause we want to grow the Twitch stuff too. And we have our emotes coming, and I know that that's going to be a lot of fun for you guys. So be on the lookout for what's new there. Let's talk about Duncan a little bit, because he went through that really awful stretch where he couldn't hit anything can hit anything. And he's come back and he's played well. And I made the joke because Strus was going off and Duncan still hit 4 or 7. And I was like, he's asserting rotational dominance. He's like, I can't lose to Max. We're homies, we're teammates. I can't have Max. Yeah, Brass, you're laughing, but like they had to. He had to.
Yeah. The Duncan thing, it was just funny to see them both sort of go off at different points. They were like trying to one up each other. That was kind of fun.
Duncan was trying to save face. Yeah, let's be honest.
It's hilarious. True. But no, it's hilarious because remember we saw like on the sideline, Duncan's like wearing his mask and he looks like his job's been like taken away from him the entire time. He's just
saw it in real time.
Like if I miss another 3-pointer, my job's taken.
It was funny, but you get some of these guys back and they don't need to do as much though. Yeah, so that's why Strus, he's going to be a good piece because he can shoot if he's not asked to do much else. Just like Duncan. Yeah. Duncan's a good piece.
Duncan does a lot.
He does, but again, the disconnect is, does he do enough to warrant the money that he is going to get? I think
Brian kind of highlighted why you're not just paying for the production, you're paying for a movable, chunky contract of a good player. What you got, Jeremy?
Well, I think it's also just important to think like when Strus comes out and plays like that with the starters in particular, that was something that was exciting because what that allows you to do is mix and match Duncan and Strus a bit more to make sure that one of those guys is on the floor at all times in a way that you don't normally see teams have multiple sort of snipers. And so if there's a given night where, hey, Duncan's just really not shooting the ball well, right? He's gotten his full, couple times through the rotations and he's just not shooting the ball well. Well, you know what? Those late third quarter, early fourth quarter minutes before you go to your closing lineup, maybe those go to Strus instead. And there's something good about healthy competition on a team like this, right? Because the big thing, and everybody talking about energy or are they coasting or are they whatever, there also is something about knowing every single night, like, oh, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to play 30 minutes when there's only 8 men available, right? There is a little bit less of a sense of urgency in your own individual play. That's just as an athlete in general,
we've mentioned this.
Yeah,
like Gabe Vincent's playing and he's like, oh, if I play bad, what are they going to do?
What does it matter?
Like,
yeah, exactly. And so when you have that type of, now you have a night like last night, it's a perfect example where Max Strus, because Duncan gets in foul trouble, comes out and starts leading the offense. And all of a sudden Duncan comes back and he's like, all right, I'll show you what I got. And that, how great is that for your team, right? Because offensively for the whole first half, they were basically buoyed by guys shooting the ball well from 3, 2 guys. That was it. And, in the second half that, they continued to score in other types of ways, but it's just, I think that can only be an advantage for them to have more bodies like that. And like you guys mentioned, whether they decide to pay for Duncan in the long term or not, sort of irrelevant. That could be a valuable, movable asset, or he could, something people discount is play to the value of the contract to just play it all the way through. We always talk about moving contracts before they're done. He could just be an all-time great shooter and do these other things you're talking about, G, and be worth that contract going forward. So it's nice to have someone sort of waiting in the wings, though, should either that contract not go the right way. God forbid Duncan gets banged up for a couple games, and to see him do it with the starters is beneficial.
We have guys that can shoot the ball, no question. I think I would really like to have more people in the wings that are waiting to play defense, though.
Yes.
I think that's the real issue with this team. This team was completely collapsing at the end of every quarter last night.
We have way too many specialists is what we have on the team.
But they did last year too. That's not unlike what they had last year.
Yeah, but I think having like a piece like Jay Crowder at the 4 was, you were able to have more combination in your lineups to have more of the more shooting with the two-way defense and scoring abilities. Because at the moment, last night's closing lineup, you had Iggy. And most of the time, he was just staying in the corner from 3 on offense.
He played well. No, I will not have any Andre slander. He was awesome last night.
I mean, and he had Jimmy, he had Bam, and they were basically doing most of the load on defense. And then you had Tyler and Duncan.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, you saw what we saw even in the playoffs. The teams were just trying to find a switch and get up on the pick and roll so they could, take off the mismatch. And that's how Gordon Hayward went off in overtime.
Well, I wanna talk a little bit about the defense, because that's kind of what I've been watching film and I've been looking at some numbers. Andre in particular was exceptional yesterday on both ends, and I know that they don't guard him, but he's shooting okay. And yesterday was not a good shooting night for him. But he makes plays on closeouts. When he attacks closeouts, he's finding the man. He's finding the pocket. Andre's a smart basketball player. Not unlike Draymond Green, even though he's not really a good shooter, he's a plus spacer because of other things that he does. Now, sometimes it doesn't go well. And if you don't have, he's a talent like riser. He's not helping a bunch of bad dudes get competent. But if you have talented guys on the team, he's going to find the guys that are moving and help. So I'm very pro Andre this season. But Brian, to your point about the defense, like we pile on Tyler, but a lot, like Bam had the softest switches I've ever seen in my life. Like at that Malik Monk 3 that tied it. I mean, they do that inbound play and they switch, which is fine. But Bam has to play up on him because he needs to have clock and score awareness that if they score a 2, that's fine. But I can't let a guy that has not missed take a corner 3. That's on Bam. Late contest, played off of him. And we baby him sometimes. We baby Bam because we love him and we want to be the protectors of our superstar, no ceiling, all that. And we believe it. But, like, that's on him. The other big play in overtime was when the Hornets were really fishing for Tyler on Hayward. So they have an initial screen to get Bam switched on. And then they have Tyler's man switch screen on Bam to get Tyler switched on to Gordon, right? So they do this double screen thing. And then LaMelo, who flares into the corner, Bam switches that. And in that case, I'm like, well, LaMelo's not a good shooter, had made 1 3 all day. And if he's going to catch the ball, he doesn't have a quick release. And I trust you to at least get a contest up than leaving Tyler on an island with Gordon Hayward. And I think that's some unawareness of what's going on. That's a little bit of unpreparedness by Eric, I think. Like they clearly did not know what to do in those situations, or they did, and I don't like that decision because if that's the decision, fine. But in the finals, when they were locked the fuck in, what they would do is Tyler would hard show on any of those actions and let Jimmy recover, or whoever's that on-ball defender on LeBron recover and get back in front of him. It's not what they did, and I know that when you switch, it's complicated because it's like, do we switch off-ball stuff? Do we switch 4-5? Do we switch 2-3? Like, I know it's tough. But they just made the fucking finals doing it. So I don't really have a lot of room for excuses of they got confused. That was a dumbass play. They shouldn't have done that. Bam over switches like crazy. And Nikias has talked about this a lot in his Dunker Spot podcast, that he's switching for no damn reason. And then all of a sudden you have Duncan Robinson trying to box out a center, and that's why they're bleeding rebounds, right? So it's all kind of connected. And I think we kind of focus, well, Tyler couldn't stay in front of Gordon Hayward. Well, no shit, Tyler's not going to stay in front of Gordon. We know that. So to me, that's like, Tyler's the easy one to pick on, but that was a systematic issue that has been festering with them a lot. And by the way, on that drive that Hayward took Tyler, Jimmy is ball watching that. Jimmy's kind of standing. Zeller's in the corner, which whatever. Zeller could take a 3. Who the fuck cares? You could split the difference and play that passing lane. Fine. You're Jimmy Butler. When Gordon comes on Jimmy's side. Jimmy doesn't even dig into the ball, right? Like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get a hand in the lane. You're supposed to dig. You're supposed to come or slide into help position. I tweeted the play out. Jimmy's just standing there and watches. So Tyler's like really left on a fucking island. And I get Jimmy's tired, but you just can't look at that and say, well, Tyler, that's not fair. Jeremy, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no, I think the thing that you said in the middle was of all of that was most
it was long,
which is no, but it's sort of systemic, right? It's not any individual blame on any individual player.
Yes.
It's as a unit, they're not playing as sharp as they were when we were watching them in the bubble against the Celtics or the Lakers. Mind you, since then they've had. And this is not, by the way, excuse making of any kind. It's
George Sedano.
It's just to set up where things are now compared to where things were then. And if anything, where I close this would probably not be in terms of an excuse. But since the bubble that we saw, they lost their starting power forward, who was, whether he's that player forever is irrelevant. He was that player for that stretch. And
he
that
sure
guy
fucking was.
Is no longer there, right? So we can argue whether or not he would have been that if they threw the $25 million one-year contract or the long-term deal at him. Jay Crowder was that version of Jay Crowder for that stretch, and that guy's no longer there. And that he did a lot for that basketball team. Then, on top of that, since then, they've started Meyers Leonard, who we haven't talked about, but a guy who played the overwhelming majority of their games last season, starting at the center position, and at least was a threat to come into the rotation. Out for the year since January 9th. He's gone, and he was barely playing to begin with. So that's another rotation piece gone. Kendrick Nunn, who was a big rotation piece at the beginning, he's completely gone and out of the lineup because he's been outplayed by other players and isn't in the lineup anymore. But you have a relatively new team together, right? Iguodala playing with guys he's never played with before on the Heat, right? That his rotations were not meeting up with, right? You tried introducing Mo Harkless. You tried introducing KZ Okpala. Kelly Olynyk starting at the 4 with a group that he hasn't played with much. Tyler got hurt. Jimmy got COVID. Avery Bradley got COVID. Bam missed time. Goran Dragic has been out. He comes back last night. He doesn't look like himself. And it's a Monday night with 2,000 fans with COVID sniffing dogs against the Charlotte Hornets. No, they're not going to play defense down the stretch the same way they played against the Lakers in the finals in the bubble. I don't know how anybody could reasonably expect that level of expectation. And yet, the thing that the Heat pride themselves on, and the thing that separates this franchise, and the reason we can sit here on this podcast and expect that and get mad about it, is because they've told us to expect that on the random Monday night against the Charlotte Hornets. And that's why fans are upset. Because if you're marketing and you're talking about the hardest working, most best conditioned team, that's what you have to be down the stretch, even on those Monday nights against the Hornets. And so I don't think that there's any problem with I think last night was by far their worst loss of the season. And it's the only loss that I look at as a genuinely bad loss because of all the other circumstances. Truly, there was just a bad loss.
That Detroit loss was bad, dude. I'm sorry.
It was bad.
They lost by 30 to the worst team in the league.
It was over at the beginning of the game. This time,
I know that's what made it even worse.
No, but I just those games I let that go. It's a fluke. It's an aberration. This is one where you saw the issues down the stretch in the fourth quarter, the issues that scare you with this team defensively and offensively down the stretch, and they gave you all of the reasons to panic. And yet, this is their first game together as a group all season since we've reset after their best player got sick and their other point guard got hurt and Goran Dragic missed time. I mean, literally every key contributor has missed some time. So
Jeremy, chat is screaming at you. Stop making excuses. Yep, it's BS.
It's not.
Stop making excuses. Well, Jimmy, by the way, did not even meet with the media yesterday, Brass. Zero accountability.
He had a stare down with Duncan Robinson. Did you see that video?
Yes, and then Jimmy yelled, "Give me the fucking ball." Do you remember that? Which I love, by the way, and I still love it.
Come on.
He yelled. He's like, "Give me the fucking ball. I got this shit."
Do you think that he's had a conversation with Pat Riley, hey, give me some players on this team that can actually?
Why is he not on the phone with Bradley Beal right now? That's what I want to know. Why, when Jimmy sees that report today of The Athletic where Bradley Beal wants to stay in Washington, why is Jimmy not getting on the phone right now and say, "Brad, cut the shit"?
He's not talking to media until there's a move. I mean, come on.
What happened to Chad Ochocinco? I thought he had this in the bag.
Yeah, what happened to Chad? Chad gave us a bunch of promises that he didn't deliver on. Brian's right. We gotta blame Chad. We have to, Alex, hold him accountable.
Get him on the pod.
Get him on the pod. I think we tried. We're trying for Super Bowl.
Oh, that's
and by trying, we're just tweeting at him, "Hey, come on the pod."
I'll join in.
It's basically Jason Concepcion's way of getting people on NBA desktop. We just go come on
the pod.
But Jeremy, everything you're saying there is it can be true ultimately,
and it could also not be true.
Yeah,
this team
it could also really
flawed.
not be true.
Yeah, it could
that shouldn't be the reason why they're below an 8th seed right now. Literally one of the worst teams in the league. They should still be a playoff team.
The guy
half their team was hurt. I don't want to make excuses. I can't make excuses. I can't sit here in good faith to our audience.
The 30-11 squad had less talent than this team, even with 8 players hurt.
That 30-11 squad, when they did the 30-11, would bop the shit out of this team right now. I would be so fucking scared of Dion Waiters. He's coming down the court.
It's true.
Rodney.
Oh, Rodney. I'd be scared of James Johnson. I would take
Luke
any
Babbitt.
of those power forwards. Remember when the Heat had $1 million? I would take any of those right now.
I would take James Johnson back right now.
God, we didn't even talk about that Rodney slander from the Warriors the other night.
We mentioned it last pod.
Oh, I don't listen to pod.
Yeah, you don't listen. We played the Draymond audio and everything, and Draymond talks with a lot of pauses in his so every time Draymond paused, Jack would try to get in there, and it was just he and Draymond were stepping over each other. Yeah, it was great. It's fantastic radio. Chat, we're not complaining about Justice anymore. Listen, we've done a million Justice.
No, we
shows.
want Justice back. I mean, come on. He's almost healthy. He's
almost healthy. He's almost ready.
Let's go. He'd be so good on this team.
I'll trade you Andre for Justice,
I love
Memphis.
Justice.
We'll do trade
for
back.
cheap as a free agent because there's no way Memphis is
He's
taking
never
up that
coming back.
option.
He hates his team.
Won't
He
come
hates
back.
them.
Won't
He
come
was
back.
tweeting
hates
about Bam the other night. He loves
I know.
Bam.
Oh, they're all friends.
That's what I'm saying.
Is real.
Yeah, that's real.
Is real. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's brotherhood. I forgot who wrote this. It might have been Ramil or it might have been Rohan who wrote about like the brotherhood between that 30 and 11 team.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
Although
I think
Justice
it
played no
was-
part of that 30 and 11 team.
I think it was Shandell.
He was
actually.
there, though.
It was
No, he
Shandell.
was there for the 11 and 30 team. He wasn't there for the.
Yeah.
You know what's
I'm
funny
just
is that like
being honest.
Oh man.
I think he led the team in net rating that year, even despite
Because
being on
of
the
the-
losing part. No, like
man.
because like he was good whenever it was funny. Okay, so I want to talk about Meyers a little bit. Is there anything else before we move on? Anything else? Oh, the last thing I wanted to get to real quick, just a point of frustration for me with their offense. Jimmy's getting Tyler to screen for him down the stretch, getting Malik Monk switched onto him, and then Jimmy, putting Malik on a plate. Right, like just totally doing whatever he wanted, getting every bucket. Cody Zeller, as the help defender, is just not offering any resistance to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy put his damn shoulder into Cody Zeller and he flew. Right, Jimmy's a strong dude. He's like Kawhi, like sneaky strong. Right, you don't think of those like this is amazing.
Imagine when he gets those 12 pounds back. But go on.
Oh, can't wait. Yeah, this is or maybe shouldn't. I don't know. He's pretty
played really well.
good. He's really good. And then they kind of went away from that, which again, and I'm never gonna do the Doubt Eric Spoelstra show. He's the best coach in the league. I'm not doing that. I'm
don't
just
like it
curious
with
as to Brian. You love doubting Spo. You and Hot Take Harry on Twitter. Hot take, excuse me.
It's okay. Like he doesn't have to be like super great like he was in the playoffs, but like damn, like some of the
That was
rotations
weird.
lately-
Yesterday was weird. Yesterday,
bad.
listen, some of those rotational issues, that shit was weird at the end of the game. The preparation, I didn't feel was there. Which whatever, that's fine. This is a weird COVID season. I'm not gonna hold him for that.
Well, it's like I'm
some of
sure
the
Jeremy, you could probably name like one of your lesser Bruce Springsteen albums, right? I mean, or are they all just perfection to you?
For me,
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
there are lesser
Yeah.
Springsteen
So I
albums.
mean, there could be this is
Yeah.
one of suppose lesser Springsteen
Yeah.
album years, right?
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
the
what
game.
we'll call. Sure, it's 1997 Bruce Springsteen.
There you
that's
go.
what we'll say.
See?
Yeah,
He-
sure.
It happens to everyone. Happens to the best of us.
I didn't get the going away from the guard screens because then when they started switching, and I tweeted this. Also, you can check out my timeline. Bam screens for Jimmy, Bam rolls. Cody Zeller sticks with him, and then they were switching that, and then Duncan's man on the wing would come help on Jimmy, and Duncan's man is splitting the difference, but he's in position that he can disrupt Jimmy's drive because they're not giving him the pull up. They're giving him the pull up, which Jimmy did not want to take. And they're kind of blocking the paint. And if Jimmy dishes to Duncan, they can go out and get like a pretty decent contest, even though Duncan has a quick release. And that to me is like, well, the way you fix that is by having a guard screen for you, so you don't have to deal with those two guys, because Cody Zeller is not going to be able to get a closeout, right? So if Cody's now the guy that has to split the difference, and it's not Malik Monk, well, he's not going to get out there quick enough, and then Duncan can move and sidestep and do it. So like that's to me, like I look at that as one of the weird decisions. So I wonder why they went away from that.
I almost wonder if, and this is a dive that someone smarter than me would have to take, but if there's less turnover variance in those plays, right? So if it's almost like in football when you get a lead and then you just start running the ball on every play, even though the offense was humming when you were throwing the ball, and then all of a sudden you blow it because you forget how to play offense when you really need to get a couple of yards at the end of the game. And so I almost wonder if that's a decision of like, I know Jimmy's not going to turn over the ball on this play. And so even if we don't get points, that's okay. We'll eat 20 seconds and we know we won't turn it over, as opposed to a maybe, with a guard screening, maybe they just turn the ball over more. And so there's a higher reward, but there's also higher risk. And in a sense, it's like running the ball, on first and second down late in the game. And I know this is a basketball
kinda
podcast,
disagree with-
but
like-
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But this is what I'm saying. I don't know.
No, like
that-
I think you're
I
generally
don't know what
right,
to
and
say.
that's why I think at the end of clock situations, that's why guys ISO and
Yeah.
take a pull up, because you just you don't want to put yourself in a position where you go to the rim and don't get a call,
Right.
and you also don't want to put yourself in a position where you try to make a play and all of a sudden you get a turnover or you get fouled and you lose the ball. Like
Sure.
I understand that. Like the Jimmy 3 was just like that was ridiculous. I mean, they
Well,
cleared out the
that's
whole.
different. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
different.
that was just
Yeah.
Okay, and that's not
very
on
different
Spo.
than yeah, no,
that's on
the
Jimmy.
conversation.
No, but with the guard screens, it's just like, you know, when you get bunk on you at the top of the key, like, okay, like that.
Take advantage.
That's barbecue chicken, right, for Jimmy. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. It was frustrating me to no end. Chat says Curtis's hero says to bring back Yakobo Diawara. Never. He's my mortal enemy.
What were you saying about Meyers?
Let's get into Meyers a little bit. Meyers has a season-ending shoulder injury, and I wish this was Hangover Time so you could put up the video of when it happened, Brass. I'm sure they're gonna get some.
I'm sure we'll do it this week.
Yeah, tomorrow, and it was against the Wizards too, which they play the Wizards tomorrow.
That damn team.
Oh, who's Garrison Matthews is just. I'm so scared of him tomorrow. You thought Malik Monk was bad? Garrison Matthews saw that and goes, "Hold my beer."
Dropping 40 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, listen, double team him off the jump at half court. Treat him like Lillard.
Burger.
Yeah,
I'm so scared.
double him than Bradley Beal for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Let Bradley Beal get his.
No, they need to win tomorrow because they need to beat Bradley down. They need to demoralize Bradley and say, "Look, we're winners. You over here, bunch of losers."
He's had like 4 or 5 straight like Twitter like highlights of him putting his head down, and it still hasn't done
It's
anything.
so funny.
Ridiculous.
What is he doing?
It's ridiculous. But we
Makes no
listen.
sense.
I forget the Beal thing. We need to
All right,
win
so
tomorrow
back to
because we
Meyers.
suck right now. Like we need.
Oh yeah,
some
no, they
wins.
need to. Yeah,
We have 2 straight games.
Simple
against
as
them, right?
that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
they're
nothing's gonna
back-to-back.
remedy this.
Yeah.
Listen, if they, oh my god,
The irony
bad
that really remember because that's where the whole season went to hell, right? It was they were playing the Wizards, and then that's when Jimmy and everybody ended up in their contact tracing bubble, and Meyers suffered his injury. It's all the same game. It's January 9th, and we're all on Twitter screaming, "There's a lot of COVID around this game. Maybe they shouldn't be playing it." And then they played it anyway, and look what happened.
We
Also,
called that.
Then the organization is like, okay, yeah, I guess we'll play this game against Washington. It's like, yeah, you know what we invented? COVID sniffing dogs.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're
Can
gonna
we-
trust
can
them.
we talk
We're gonna
about
trust
that?
them on that. As long as we
'Cause
get
of
the
the-
Myers, yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I want to get to Myers, but I don't want to forget about the
I
COVID.
like the
'cause
idea of just kicking it down the line all the way to the end of the show. But go ahead.
Yeah, it was just we'll get to it tomorrow. By the way, the Heat are only 3 games up on the Wizards, so
Oh God.
in the win column, they're 1.5 games above the Wizards overall. So if the Heat get swept by the Wizards here, this could be.
God.
They're not gonna do that. They're gonna win. They're gonna win
Okay.
both games. So we're gonna be hunky dory.
they would tank
Jeremy.
the other day, and we had the #1 pick.
I saw that.
I'll take
That's not good.
I don't know.
I know.
I don't know if you've seen this Wizards offense,
don't own the
man.
pick.
This Wizards offense match with
They
our
can score
defense.
points.
I'm not so sure.
I know. I'm scared. And with Beal and Westbrook. So
It's
Jeremy,
fun.
fun for you. You're at the arena. You're working games. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Talk to us about the COVID sniffing dog. So our buddy, our homie, also our mortal enemy, David Ramil of Locked On Sports, wrote for Forbes because he's big time about the COVID sniffing dog. So check that out. Go to David's page and read his article. It's actually really good.
Yeah, it's great.
And David's reporting claims, well, not his reporting, the company, the SNIFF, it's called. The COVID sniffing dog company is called SNIFF, which is just excellent.
Glorious.
Yeah, David reported that they said that their results with a 92% accuracy rate on COVID. Jeremy, walk us. So yesterday we had Christian kind of explain to us in the arena what happened, but it was very loud and he's not as professional as you. Listen, he's no JT. What are they doing?
So these COVID sniffing dogs are actually, it's pretty cool. I mean, what I don't understand is just the science behind dogs sniffing anything, to be quite frank with you. So I don't really understand how they can sniff for disease in general.
Where's Ron
But
McGill?
apparently, if we could get Ron McGill on the show, that'd be huge.
explain this, yeah.
He could really, explain these answers that we need. But essentially, they have a number of fans that'll line up in a row. I think it's like 10 fans that'll line up in a row. And basically, this dog walks by with, they have, his trainer holding the leash, his or her trainer. The dog, the really wonderful dog that I met on the first day was named Tina. And so, well, good girl. And so they took this dog, and basically you hold your hands at your side, and this dog kind of jumps up to sniff what's essentially like just the fingertips of your hand, pretty much. And the premise is that if the dog then stops and sits down, that means that they've sensed whatever they've been trained to sniff that would tell you, okay, this
So
person
it's only
has
COVID. So if you were to
if
bring
they're
some
trained-
entertainment into the arena.
They are trained specifically, from what I understand, they are trained
Because chat's asking.
Yeah, no, from what I understand, although, God, I wouldn't recommend it with this few people in the arena in particular, but whatever you guys want to
This is not an endorsement.
This is not an endorsement of any kind, but I believe they are trained specifically just for COVID. And so, yeah, they walk up and they'll sniff on, on the tips of your hands. And basically they'll go for, I think they have 10 people that'll line up in a row. And they'll do that. And then they'll walk them back to the line and they get more people lined up and spaced out. And then they'll go again. And that's the next group that gets let through. For us in the media, yesterday they had a dog just for us. So like when I walked through my security portion, I had to answer a list of questions. They had to take my temperature, and then a COVID sniffing dog came up and sniffed my hand, and it was wonderful.
If the dog had sat,
I would have gone home.
Were you scared? Like, well, what if the dog sits?
No.
Were you sure that
I'd rather
you were
know?
COVID-free?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty. I'm being so careful. Like I'm being so careful. I've been so careful I've gotten the antibodies test a couple times. If anybody in my family is listening and I'm saying this out loud, they're gonna be freaking out. They're gonna, oh, you're gonna get it tomorrow. But knock on wood, I haven't gotten COVID, and I've tried to be as careful as possible. And so I was pretty sure that I didn't have it. But yeah, there's always a chance that dog's gonna sit down.
Sits.
Yeah, that's
like,
scary.
Hey, are you sure,
telling me?
Tina?
Yeah.
Tina?
Well,
are you sure?
The irony is Tina is also my mother's name, so it's perfect. it's perfect. But I mean, look, there's also, it's 92%. So how I would handle it is I would go home. I'd do my job from home. I'd get a test the next morning and hope for the best. Look, to me, the way I look at this is, and look, when I first saw it, just like everybody else, I did sort of, chuckle at the concept. But to me, I look at it as the organization is trying to do everything that they think they can to then have fans, right? Like if they're going to have fans, they're taking all the precautions that they can think of. And, one part of it is if you don't feel comfortable with the dog, and this was written in that article that you just mentioned,
yes,
you can opt out and you can go take a instant results test that'll come back in a half hour, 45 minutes. So
that's very inclusive.
That
was actually like really cool.
And it's well thought out, right? It's well thought out by the organization on a number of different levels. And so, for me, God, if I couldn't get a test, take advantage of the system. Just buy a ticket to a game, opt out of the dog thing, get my test, and move on. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a benefit. I felt safe, and I have most places these days. I do not feel safe whatsoever, and so to walk into the arena and really feel safer there than I felt pretty much anywhere was a bit of a surprise to me. And I've been there now twice with fans.
I don't feel safe anywhere, Jeremy.
I mean,
I go to
they're doing a really good job of spacing people out, it seems, in there. Although they're wanting to ramp that number up as quickly as possible, it seems.
Yeah.
Regarding the dog thing, it's like when you talk about a healthy roster. Yeah, I hope that you're right. I hope that ends up being right, but this has not been going on that long. What concerns me is every time I click a link, and that was a very nice article, very soothing article, sure. But
thanks, David.
Right, very soothing. But what concerns me is every time I click a link, it's like, oh, okay, here's another link on a COVID sniffing dog. COVID sniffing dogs at the American Airlines Arena. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It seems to be like the only place. And,
ground zero
and
of
I'm not,
COVID sniffing pups.
Listen, I'm going to be real. I'm going to keep it real with you. I'm not really trusting any of the science that comes out of Florida.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I guess time will tell.
The way that I'm choosing to look at it is just at the rest of the measures that they're taking. So mask can't come off, and they've spaced everybody out really well. And so even if these COVID sniffing dogs were not there, right, like I would still feel comfortable. And so, sure, it's an extra little assurance. And like, it's probably
it's something. It's not the only step they're taking. It's not like the courtside Karen.
Yeah,
that was
imagine,
courtside Karen.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine it was that, right? Imagine it was the only thing that had to happen was you had to pass these dogs. Then no, I wouldn't be complimenting it at all, or I wouldn't think it was a good idea whatsoever.
It's a lot of responsibility for Tina.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of responsibility. For Tina the dog.
So before we move off of this, because they get to Meyers, Do you like where are you in the game? Are you in the rooms to go lounge? Are you yeah.
At the present moment, I'm sitting with everybody else. So the first couple games that I was there, I was sitting at the top of the lower bowl, and then last night I was in the 300 level.
So you're just with the people. You're not like sitting with Cooper Moorhead and Will Manson.
So we're all So Will, God, I don't know if Will's at the games or not actually, but I haven't been over. So I don't go over to our production trucks. I don't go over to the set or anything. I haven't.
Is that a COVID thing, or they just don't want to see you?
No, yeah, I'm starting to think it's personal. No, it's a COVID thing, and there's no.
They're hazing them
over to any of that.
They're hazing you. Jeremy,
imagine it's not. You. Imagine they tell me 6 months ago, we were just messing with you. You could have gone over there. But yeah, no. So they've told me that understandably there's no real need for me to go to the trucks or to the set because everything that I do is just on the laptop or on my phone. So I just set up in wherever the Heat assigned me for that given night. And
so you have the Wi-Fi password.
Yep,
Okay,
I do.
Good to know. I think they change it every year, so I don't have it anymore. So
probably works a little better now.
You know that I asked
It's
George
amazing.
Sedano refused to give me the Wi-Fi password one year. I was like, George, what's the Wi-Fi password? George's like, I'm not giving you that. I'm responsible. I was like, come on, George. I was like, we're friends. I don't care.
That's great.
Yeah, allegiance to the Heat. Yeah, so that's funny. Okay, let's get into Meyers because Meyers plays. He's played 29 minutes this season. They're -5 net rating in those 29 minutes. So not the worst on the team. Certainly not good. Meyers had some sort of shoulder injury. I don't know if it was Anthem related. I don't know if it was basketball related. I don't know how Meyers exactly got hurt, but Meyers is out for the season with a shoulder, with some shoulder surgery brass. And not that this affects their bottom line in any way, because like obviously he's not a rotation player for them. Wasn't even when he was healthy. It took a COVID outbreak for them to consider playing him. Right, it's just not really what they need. He won't remedy anything. I guess his big value, and I put value in air quotes, is he's a $10 million contract that would be added to salary when you make a move, and he's an expiring with the team option, which is appealing to teams, especially if you want to opt into that $10 million to move in the season.
Expiring, all right.
It sure is. So I guess from an on-court perspective, they're not missing much, but obviously. I don't really see it as affecting them in any way. I think if somebody was going to take that salary, it's not because they wanted a player. It's because they wanted, numbers on a spreadsheet.
Yeah. It just, now that we know he's not going to be here this season, it was a giant question mark. Like, why? Why did this happen? It was just under 10 million. I did the math. I know I'm not usually the numbers guy, but he made $940,000 per point this season. Just throwing that out there.
That's a lot.
It's pretty good. Pretty good for him. Pretty sweet. I also want.
How many points did he have?
He had 10.
More than Mo Harkless.
10 points. Well, 9 in that first game.
Has Mo Harkless had 10 points
Tiff
yet?
almost got a Myers jersey for the first game.
Maurice Harkless. Okay.
I want to preface all the Myers talk by saying that I and the rest of us, I assume, but I'm definitely speaking for myself. I don't wish ill on anybody. Like on this team,
these are guys.
Other teams, sure.
I wish ill on people all the time. I don't know.
Oh, no, I'm saying
the people in the
though.
truck. Jeremy wishes ill on.
Yeah, right.
No, I don't. That's why I don't go to the truck.
He doesn't want to. Yeah. So I that sucks that he's got an injury that takes him out of it. It does. And we have firsthand account of Meyers is a good guy. With someone that he did for someone we know last year, he's a very giving person. I like Meyers.
Very kind to the media.
Yeah,
yeah, man.
He's fun, man. I get it,
great.
and he was
not
a good
worth
piece
$10
on a
million.
team, right? And I feel like after last season, that was enough. But my thing, even with this injury, is like, well, he can't be traded yet anyway. And like we were just days from that moment where he could be traded.
2 days.
2 days. And now we find out he's out. So it's like, man, I'm questioning why was that really the plan? Did they like it? Did they really like on top of what he did on the court, which he did some good things on the court last year. Obviously, he was a big piece. He was a big piece of that.
He was certainly big,
for sure.
Sure, but he was a piece. He did a fine job. He did a
good regular. He held the fort in the regular season at that position.
He absolutely did. But unless it was like a loyalty thing, and you're like, hey, we're gonna give you this. We thank you for the time. We're absolutely, the second this clock runs out, we're gonna trade you, just so you know, and you can't say anything about it. Or if they were gonna roll out a Vice Homestrong jersey that they needed a model for, maybe
born for that.
But aside from that, I hate
those jerseys.
Same. His only real highlight this year was again another thing of him standing.
The meme, the video, yeah.
Yeah.
Catch it on Hangover Time tomorrow, after the game.
Yeah, it's super frustrating.
Oh, well, I mean, like, Brass, like, honestly, like, that colors a lot of the fans' relationship with Meyers now, for better or for worse.
Colors? I mean, whatever. Go on.
Yeah, it certainly informs the fans' relationship with him in ways that, for better or for worse, a lot of fans, and I've been on the record saying I don't really like what he did, and I understand why he did it. I also have certain feelings about kind of the institutions that, he wants to protect and defend, which it's difference in ideas, whatever, totally respect that. But I think that, his tenure with the Heat, certainly over. I don't think he'll be back next season, and he's not going to play. So, the Meyers Leonard era is defined by, standing video games and starting next to Bam for 50 games and looking okay.
Right. Well, I mean, and hindsight's 2020, right? But I don't understand from a roster construction standpoint why they decided to give him $10 million.
I think Brian could probably answer, because Brian, like, you obviously know a lot about the cap, especially more than me, but like the money that they gave him was money that it didn't prevent them from spending it elsewhere, correct?
We had Albert Namon on the pod. Basically, the Heat gave him the money because they could.
Right.
They couldn't use it on anybody else because of the cap holds.
The only other contracts they could have given out were minimum contracts. The mid-level exception would decide to split between Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless, and then they had the biannual, which they still have. Besides re-signing Goran Dragic, the only other thing they could do with that cap space once they decided that they wanted to re-sign Goran was re-sign their own free agents. And that's why they tried to re-sign. Looked like they tried to re-sign DJJ, and he wasn't. He wanted the years.
It was a years thing.
Quickly from him.
Yeah, I get
they were
that.
waiting out for a while to see if Jay would come back, and he didn't want to come back because he wanted the years. And it seemed like Meyers signed instantly because what other team was going to give him that contract?
Solomon.
I'd prefer Solomon Hill over Meyers Leonard. Solomon 100%. Hill would be a rotation player, not only because he's friend of the show, Solomon Hill.
Yeah, for $10 million, we could have gotten Hill, we could have gotten Beasley, we could have gotten Chalmers, man. Like,
bring the band back together.
What are we doing?
So something that's going to be interesting, and this actually is material. The Heat are going to get a disabled player exception. That's about $4.7 million. Plus the 3.6 biannual, so they're actually gonna have some ammunition in the buyout
market.
That's
probably create some roster space if they want to use any of those exceptions.
Chris
I would think,
Silva hit
I would
the
think
road,
that's why they
Jack.
did that now, though, right? I would think that's why we're finding out that Meyers is getting surgery now, so that they can apply for that, get that, and have that before all of the trades are available, right? So they have that exemption to work in. So maybe Meyers doesn't even really need to be getting it right now, and he's helping out the team by going this far, right?
Beno Udrih situation?
Not for whatever, but like we don't know. Maybe it's, hey, we gave you $9 million. You're gonna get surgery.
Help us out. You're still getting paid, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one thing that look, we can have also. I can talk till I'm blue in the face about the anthem and the nuances of all of that, but in moving past that and just talking about what this guy was like for the organization. Like, seemingly, every single player on the team loves the guy. And seemingly, he's done nothing but like respect everything that we as fans love about the whole culture. And remember, he's the one that was getting up with Jimmy at 3 a.m. during, the summer last year, back when we all were falling in love with that. So like,
yeah, no question.
I hope that the way that Meyers is remembered is not as like, I don't know. I just hope it's not in a negative light, because I think that, and here's where I'm showing my bias, because as someone who's been in the media and having to listen to press conferences at my job every day, droning from Canes football players to the Heat, right, across all of sports, by far the most entertaining soundbite, and wanted to be that for the media, because he knows, like, he would say that, he'd acknowledge that, like, I know how boring this is most of the time, so I'm trying to make it fun for you.
I want to lead the league in sound bites,
right? And he did, and that, maybe that's part of it, and maybe that shows my bias toward him a little bit. But on that element, I hope that he's looked at in a more positive light, at least toward what he felt for the organization. And there he is.
What is that? Is that Meyers?
Is that Meyers?
I will piggyback off
You're
of that.
so quick.
That's wild, Brian.
Was that today?
Literally just got posted 23 minutes ago from Ellie
Incredible.
Leonard's Twitter
Damn.
account.
By the way, Jeremy, Schmied the Smolnik in our chat asks, has anyone ever actually talked until they were blue in the face?
Honestly, I've come close. I don't take a
think
lot
so.
of breaths.
I don't think so.
I want to piggyback on what Jeremy was
That's a good
saying
point.
there, and say that Meyers clearly likes his team. He likes his squad, and I
Yeah.
do think if the Miami Heat had a Patreon, he would definitely be the biggest donor.
$50 tier.
You're right.
Hey, Meyers, by the way, if you want to get on the podcast, if you want to get on Hangover Time, listen, Meyers Leonard, if you're listening, I know you
He's
love
listening.
Alf.
He's not coming on the podcast.
Yeah, he's
anymore.
probably listen. Myers is on Twitch.
You guys ruined this, bro.
We are on Twitch right now. We're on twitch.tv/MI
We don't have the budget.
Heatbeat. If you're a podcast listener, you want to hop over to our Twitch because we live stream every podcast pre and post game show. So check us out over there. But Meyers, I know that you're on this platform. If you're somewhere in the chat, somewhere in the sea of chat users, and you want to come on Hangover Time or the Heatbeat pregame show, you pull up. You listen. I'm gonna pull up the picture. You're gonna go to patreon.com/Miami Heatbeat. You're gonna click on that Heatbeat Lifer tier. Right, it's on the screen right now, Meyers. You can see it. You can click that. And then, when we put out the schedule, you can select on Patreon, I want to be on Hangover Time following Heat Wizards. And you will be with your old friend, Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Heat Twitter President Alf. And you will get to be on Hangover Time. Break down the
All
game.
the wrong link though.
This almost
You could play
sounds.
Drip Drop. Jeremy, are you familiar with the Drip Drop drinking game?
Actually not.
So our nickname not our nickname, Alex Mooseby, Moose, nickname Tyler Herro Drip Drop. I don't know why, and I'm here for it. Brass hates it. Brian,
Yeah.
do you hate Drip Drop?
It's terrible.
Why do I hate it?
Where do you stand on Drip Drop?
I don't hate it. I mean, I haven't played it.
I like it.
I probably can't play it because I don't even drink that
No,
much.
but like the name. How
Oh,
do you
yeah,
feel
no,
about
it's
the
good.
name?
I think it's decent.
It's a good name.
I think you guys could still keep it even if Tyler Hero gets traded.
No,
Oh, it'd be even
Well,
better.
yeah. So, so we play a Drip Drop game where Moose just yells Drip Drop and we have to drink. And we sometimes do
Sure.
it for subscript. Yeah, sometimes when chat's fun, we'll take shots with chat. Right, we make it an interactive drinking experience. So Meyers, if you want
Love
to
that.
shotgun a beer, listen. Alex Solana's drinking Bud Light Clamato on stream. Maybe you can join us. Jeremy, that's disgusting. I don't know what
Come on,
Solana's
man.
doing.
What are you doing?
That's what
you
working
doing?
with 790 the ticket does.
That's
You-
terrible.
yeah, it's awful. Bud Light Clamato. What? Why?
I can't understand why you would make the choice to get
He
it.
chose it. He went
what
to
I'm
the
saying.
store and bought it.
Right, that's my point, is knowing that was a conscious choice. That's my problem.
I don't know why
It's
this
not a
organization
problem
made a
with-
conscious choice to give Meyers Leonard $10 million or something.